No mai haere mai. It's the Huddy Hui. Find Huddy Sports on Instagram and Facebook. huddysports.co.nz. Now let's kōrero.
Kia ora all and welcome to the Huddy Hui episode 137. First week of Wellington Club Rugby underway this Saturday. We're looking forward to that, but someone who's been playing in the higher echelons of rugby here, he's joining us in the studio because his internet, he said, was a bit dodgy at home. Zach Gallagher is our guest on the Huddy Hui. Zach, many thanks for coming on. Let's see what happened last Friday. You were named down to play for the Hurricanes against the Waratahs, and then you were ruled out injured. What happened?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. It's nice to be on and sort of connect. But yeah, meant to play against the Waratahs last Friday in Wellington, and on Wednesday's training just in the forwards units, doing a maul. I've done many times before, and just got my leg caught on a really wet angle, and the maul ended up collapsing on me just with my leg outstretched, and did a grade 2 tear of my hamstring, which is a bit unfortunate, but hopefully not too long. Hopefully back in a couple of weeks, as frustrating as it is.
Now, of course, you've had a slow start to the season as well. You had an issue with your Achilles. How did that come about? And how frustrating was that? Because Achilles can be quite frustrating injuries.
Yeah, again, another frustrating one. Sort of quite a common theme of my season so far, but just in the latter parts of pre-season, picked up an Achilles niggle. Sort of a bit of a plantaris Achilles one, sort of a bit of a random one. Just, yeah, frustrating would be the word. Sort of came right, didn't come right, went back to training, started playing up again, and then eventually sort of just went away randomly. So, yeah, hopefully got that all behind me, and it stays at bay.
Now, of course, it's probably because you probably was the fittest forward in the Hurricanes pre-season. What was your Broncos score, and what was your keys to your fitness at the start of the season before you started getting the Achilles niggles?
Yeah, that's probably what caused it. I ran a Bronco pre-season, or first one of the pre-season was a 4:34. So that was a PB for me. And keys to fitness, I think probably it's always been a little bit of a strength of mine, fitness. Not so much strong as the other guys that are a bit more naturally gifted in that space. But yeah, always sort of prided myself on my work ethic and hopefully having a bigger engine. So I just really enjoy running, like getting out in the hills in pre-season and doing something different, and just staying active. So it sort of comes a bit more naturally to me, I guess.
Now, you've been having to do a lot of recovery lately, including now. Let's talk about the impact of NZCIS, where the Hurricanes are training second year they've been there. Tell us about that impressive venue and how has that aided in your recovery from your injuries?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Hurricanes have an amazing base at NZCIS, and we're very fortunate to have a world-class facility, gym, sauna, fields, ice baths, cryo, you name it, it's there. And it's really aided me in my recovery, sort of with my Achilles first and then my hamstring, hopefully being able to get back a bit quicker than they expect. So we'll see what happens. But in terms of being injured or just, being an athlete and trying to perform at your best, it's probably one of the best facilities in the world. And it's nice to have everything all in one space so you can sort of walk off the training field, go and do your recovery, have your gym, have a lunch, and then get on to the next thing. So we're very fortunate.
Your debut was against the Highlanders in round 5 of Super Rugby, long overdue. Tell us about the thrill of the debut, considering the game against the Landers went down to the wire. Yeah,
it did. You're not wrong. We managed to hold on in front of a pretty cool atmosphere, actually, down in Dunedin with the zoo being pretty packed out. We sort of needed the win. It was sort of a frustrating couple of weeks for us as a team. We felt like we didn't put a full 80-minute performance together, and we were desperate for a win. As you know, the points table is pretty close this year, and being the top 6, you sort of really got to be in there. So it was awesome to get my debut. Similar to before, like coming off the Achilles frustration, it was just nice to be back playing and being back contributing in the team in sort of a playing sense. And awesome to start. And the boys dug pretty deep and managed to hold on by, I think, was it 2 points in the end?
Right on the end,
yeah. Boys were pretty stoked after that, and vibe after a win's always a bit better, and that led into our bye week and hopefully a bit of a bounce from that. So we'll see what happens.
How did the Hurricanes recognise or honour your debut in that game against the Highlanders?
Yeah, debut is always pretty special, and Hurricanes is a pretty special team to me in terms of my family and having that Wellington connection. So it was awesome to be able to go down there and debut, and they do it pretty well. Have a person who gets up and says a few words. So for me, that was Big Cheese, which is Isaiah Walker-Lewery, said a few words, and then my family from Christchurch drove down for the game, which was pretty special, and had a couple of mates as well in the shed. So, just to be able to share that time and that moment with them was pretty special and something I remember for a long time.
Round 5 was also when you wore the Marvel hero jerseys. Captain America, or should it have been Wolverine?
Well, it's a highly debated one, isn't it? It's look, I'm not too skilled up in the Marvel thing, the whole theme, and to be honest, I didn't really know what was happening. But yeah, a few of the boys sort of thought Wolverine, but ended up with Captain America. So debut in the Captain American jersey, which is pretty funny. But yeah, all the teams sort of got stuck in and got amongst the theme. So yeah.
How's the change of the environment been for you in the capital city? What was behind the move from Christchurch to Wellington, and have you got used to the wind?
Yeah, the wind's crazy up here. They always say windy wellies, but to be fair, it's actually been pretty good of late. Today was an unreal day. So, why the move? I obviously from Christchurch and spent my whole life down there, whether it be school, university, and then coming out of university into club rugby and sort of the academy, and fortunate enough to pick up a gig with Canterbury and the Crusaders. So Christchurch is home for me. It's been my home forever, or best part of 22, 23 years. So I just felt like I needed probably a little bit of a change and a freshen up. I sort of, again, had a couple of frustrating injuries down south, and I really enjoyed my time down there. It's been amazing, and the people I've been able to learn off, and surrounded by some pretty amazing people, and to be able to learn from them has been a real privilege and something that I'm super grateful for. But just felt like I needed to probably step outside my comfort zone a little bit and test myself, and the Hurricanes opportunity came up, and sort of have a bit of a connection to Wellington and through my family, and just felt like it was probably good timing and a good change for me, and just seeing how you play the game in a slightly different way, whether it be different coaches or different boys around how they view the game. And yeah, it's been a good wee freshen up for myself, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
We'll talk about the family connection soon, but let's talk about the reaction, the move north, considering the rivalry between the Hurricanes, Crusaders, Canterbury and Wellington. How did that reaction go down? Yeah,
it's Canterbury, Wellington, or Crusaders, Hurricanes, always been a pretty strong rivalry and sort of enemies, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you're always going to cop a little bit of stick for leaving, aren't you? And Crusaders really pride themselves, or probably Canterbury region as a whole pride themselves on loyalty and bringing Canterbury or Crusader kids through the system and turning them into professional rugby players. So as I said, I'm super grateful for the opportunity I had down there, and to live out that dream down there, and wouldn't change it for anything. But yeah, obviously leaving, copped a bit of stick from a few of the boys in the team and a couple of mates as well. But yeah, that's, I guess, the nature of professional sport and sort of the business or the industry that we're in, and sort of forgotten about reasonably fast and move on to the next job. It's quite funny, we played the Crusaders in round 1.
That's right.
Down there. Obviously had my Achilles niggle, but yeah, it would have been pretty funny to play against some of those lads, and we've got them next week up here actually at home. So
yeah, that would be an absolute beauty of a game.
Hopefully we get one back on them, because we went down in that first round. So yeah, fingers crossed.
And how different are the Crusaders and the Hurricanes camps?
Similar in some ways, but different in different ways. You know, it's get asked that question a bit really, and sort of an eye on both lens, or coming from the Crusaders and coming up here, you sort of get a bit of a feel for what they do down south and what they do up here. But Crusaders obviously pretty successful club, and what they're doing has worked for them for a long time, and around their values and the type of player they're trying to create. And likewise, the Hurricanes have also been a successful franchise, and probably a completely different style of rugby, I'd say. Crusaders is structured, set piece orientated, skill set, that kind of thing, which has served them very well. And probably up here, I'd say a bit of a difference around, or well, I can only speak on what I've seen this year, but maybe Clark Laidlaw in terms of that coming from that sevens background and probably the type of athletes that we have up here. Gifted with some of the athletes we do have, Asafar Moore and Xavier Namir and a couple of those boys, just around probably playing space and a bit more eyes up footy, almost like a hybrid 7s-15 sort of footy. And a big thing for us this year is trying to be encouraged to use the ball and attack space over structure, sort of been our saying. And we sort of haven't really got our game going for 80 minutes. Probably nice to get a win against the Highlanders, and then probably a good performance for us against the Waratahs last week, and it was nice to get a bit of confidence out of that game. But yeah, sort of same in some ways, but we're all playing rugby at the end of the day, but just probably the type of athlete we have up here and the way that they try and coach is probably a little bit different, but enjoy both styles, and it's been good for me to challenge myself around how I can evolve my game or change some things up as well.
Crusaders number 263. Who was your debut against in 2022?
Funnily enough, it was actually against the Highlanders as well.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Highlanders down in Christchurch, and then my Canes debut was Highlanders down in Dunedin. So yeah,
great.
Against the Highlanders twice. It's quite funny.
19 caps for the Crusaders. What was your best moment and why?
Pretty hard to go past the debut, I reckon.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing rugby in Christchurch or down in the Canterbury region, you're sort of always growing up idolising the Crusaders, and that was a pretty special moment for me. Again, similar, having my family there and some friends as well to share that moment with, and yeah, sort of just wear the Crusaders jersey for the first time was pretty amazing. I think, again, we snuck a narrow victory over the Highlanders, so they're probably my favourite moment.
Scott Robertson is now the All Black coach, second year in. What did you learn from him as the coach of the Crusaders when you were there?
Yeah, I had him for a couple of years towards the end of his coaching down there, but pretty amazing coaching group down at the Crusaders with Razor and Jace and Scotty Hansen and a couple other great coaches in that environment as well. Andrew Goodman, who's now with the British Irish Lions,
That's right,
actually.
yeah.
So yeah, some amazing coaches down there, and I think probably one thing I took from them is how amazing they complement each other in different areas of the field. And, Ray's great on his theming and bringing a group together, motivating and using language to sort of, I guess, bring a group of individuals together as a team, and with some pretty special and passionate assistant coaches in Jason, Scotty Hansen. So, yeah, took a lot from him and took a lot from those two as well.
There were 2 titles when you were there in the Crusaders system, 2022, 2023. What was it like being part of Super Rugby champion environment?
Yeah, it was awesome. Obviously, yeah, anytime you win a championship's pretty special, and I think it's probably the first rugby sort of thing I've won, in terms of winning competition. But pretty special to be a part of that group, and 2022 being the first and 2023 being the second. I didn't play in any of the finals, so I don't really reckon that, you sort of being part of a championship team, but in terms of actually winning, I sort of felt like I haven't really, won in terms of being on the field, but still special to be able to contribute and see the boys get out there and get after it. 2022 season was pretty an interesting but also a surreal season for me. I got injured in NPC in 2021, blew my big toe out scrummaging for Canterbury, and then so I missed the first. Well, that was the year of Queenstown pre-season, so I missed that with the team, stayed in Christchurch and rehabbed, and then wasn't actually available to round 7, I think, which was obviously my debut, and sort of everything happened pretty quick from there. Went from sort of had a bit of a lock crisis down south, and sort of ended up starting quite a few games, and then found myself playing in a quarterfinal and then a semi-final against the Chiefs down there. So yeah, in terms of going from 20 seconds of NPC to playing in a Super Rugby semi-final against the Chiefs down in Christchurch was pretty crazy.
Of course, last season was a tough one for the Crusaders. 2024, missing out on finals. What were the learnings from that campaign? Because we don't tend to see what actually it's like, behind the scenes. I know there was a lot of hard work that was going on.
Yeah, I don't think it was through a lack of trying or a lack of care or complacency or anything like that. We were pretty strong in our goal of the season being to go 8 in a row in terms of, I guess there's a bit of, that year that they had the Aotearoa and the Aussie comp. But in terms of going 8 in a row, that was sort of our theme. But as I say, it wasn't probably a lack of trying or care or commitment, just struggled to finish games and close games out. Had a couple of injuries, key injuries as well, and probably just a combination of things. And probably just lacked the intensity that is demanded through, to win Super Rugby games consistently. And I think just the rise of other Super Rugby teams in the competition, the level's really gone up. And as you've seen this year, the competition's closer and closer, and anyone can take it on their day. So in terms of being on, like that, you've got to be on, otherwise you're probably losing a game these days. So yeah, there were learnings across the board in terms of, areas here and there where we could have been better, and couple of results, changed that and maybe you're with a sniff. And we probably ended up playing our best footy towards the end of the season. Yeah. Winning against Moana. I think we beat the Blues down in Christchurch towards the end, but started slow during the season. Fiji and a couple other games. So yeah, they're obviously haven't been down there this year in terms of their pre-season, but I know they've been had a pretty tough pre-season from a working and fitness perspective, and they've come out the gate pretty strong this year. I know they've dropped the game to the Chiefs and Moana tipped them up in the weekend, but they've had some great results against the Blues, and they were playing some great rugby. So yeah, it's anyone's game these days.
You mentioned the Canterbury Rugby Academy. It's been a factory of producing top quality players for a number of years now. What makes that academy special?
It's that's what they pride themselves on, and can't actually remember the statistic, but they've got a pretty unreal conversion rate between turning, I guess, club rugby players and amateurs into professionals, whether that be at the Crusaders or in professional rugby contracts. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a great time, sort of on and off the field. Like, I think I learnt a lot around time management and what it's like to work hard and learning, new skill sets and sort of just what it takes to be a professional, really. And we had Aaron Webb, who's actually now the Crusaders manager. He was our academy manager, and he's a top bloke in terms of probably just being a mentor for young men, and just the maturity you can get in those 3 years. And it's an enjoyable time. You work hard, you do a lot of fitness, and work pretty hard over that time, but form some great relationships. And there's boys playing sort of all over Super Rugby now that have come out of the academy. I know a lot in the Crusaders itself, but Sam Derry up at the Blues and Huddy Sa at the Chiefs. So there's boys sort of playing all over, and a really enjoyable time and something I'll look back with fond memories.
Burnside Rugby Club is your local club in Christchurch. How many games have you managed to play for your club down south since leaving school, and any successes?
Great question, actually. I'd say maybe above 20, below 30, somewhere around that 20 mark. Love club rugby. I really enjoy that club rugby side of. I think sometimes you sort of get a bit caught up in the whole professional side and sort of lose touch a bit with club rugby, or it can be easy too. But I really enjoy getting back to club and connecting with some old faces, and they always give you good energy and happy to have you around, and sort of keeps you grounded as well. Most of those guys come off at a 9 to 5 at the factory off the building side or at uni, and they just love rugby and they get up for anything. So it sort of reminds you why you play the game, which is pretty cool. Just fond memories of playing footy on a Saturday afternoon and having a beer in the sheds and getting up to the club rooms and connecting with a couple of the old boys from the club. There's probably the stuff from club rugby that I look back the most at and really, remember. So yeah, we Burnside actually had quite a few. We had Isaiah Punavai, Tamati Williams, Shay, a couple other boys as well playing at the club all at the same time. So it was good fun.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Didn't go too great though.
No.
A bit concerning. She's not winning anything.
Your debut for Canterbury in the NPC came in 2020. Who was your debut against, and what is your Canterbury number?
Yeah, so debuted, 2020 was my first official cap, you could say. It was actually in a pre-season game, but it was a Ranfurly Shield game against North Otago. Canterbury number 1719. 1719, so that's my Canterbury number. Just at Rugby Park, Ranfurly Shield game, North Otago, which was pretty cool. It's the only Ranfurly Shield game I played in, actually. So,
oh, wow.
Not that I took it for granted, but you sort of don't really realise that the first time you play it was a pre-season game, sort of win and gone, and it was like, that's crazy. But 2020 was the first debut, and then I guess my first game in the competition was 2021. That was Auckland up there when I did my plantar plate in my toes.
We won't mention 2022. Certain team from Wellington won the final that year against Canterbury.
Yeah, they did. We it was actually a really enjoyable season 2022. We played some good rugby, and then in that final just got beaten by a strong Wellington side that came down, and I think it was close for about 60 minutes. They ran away with it in the end, but pretty cool to play in a final. We just haven't really probably clicked yet as a Canterbury side in the last couple of years. We've had a reasonably strong side on paper, just putting in consistent performances, and when it matters as well, we've sort of ended up with 2 semi-finals, I think, in the last 2 years, and then lost that final in 22. So hopefully this year we go one better than the last couple of years.
Most Hurricanes get attached to a local club in Wellington. However, you already had a connection to a club, the mighty Petone Rugby Club, which you have a strong family connection to. Tell us about that family connection. Yeah,
so a couple of strong family ties up to the Wellington region, which is pretty cool. So my great uncle, Alan Hewson, played for Petone, Wellington, and then All Blacks for a couple of years as well. So, nice to be able to be affiliated to that club. I actually had no real option in terms of my choice. It was either Petone or nothing. So I signed up really straight away. So, going to get down to the club and get to know them a bit more, and hopefully end up playing a couple games for them later on in the year. We'll see. Might be actually a return to play for me post this hamstring injury. So we'll see what happens. And, just nice to sort of be in a club or be affiliated with a club that's got a bit of family connection, and just spend some more time with my Wellington family, I guess.
Does Alan tell you about some of the stories from those days when he was playing, particularly the battles against Canterbury and Wellington?
Yeah, some good old stories from Huey. He's a top man, Huey, and some good yarns from back in the day. It's quite a different generation back then in terms of, like having a beer in the sheds and sort of that non-professional era. But and then I'm living with my nana as well, actually, which is pretty special. And she's got some pretty fond memories of supporting Huey in the crowd, wearing their Wellington t-shirts against Canterbury, who obviously had Robbie Deans back in the day, and they sort of battled it out for the 15th spot in the All Blacks. And if you're a Canterbury supporter, you were hard Robbie Deans, and if you're Wellington, you were probably Alan Hewson. So some funny stories of them getting abused back in the day. And Huey was, as he says, probably not heavier than 70 kilos, dripping wet back in the day. So just some good yarns around that sort of rivalry and sort of that rugby back in the non-professional days, and they all played it for the love of it, and it's pretty cool.
Product of Cross College in Christchurch. Tell us about your time there.
Yes, did my schooling down in Christchurch at Cross College, which was pretty awesome. A great school, and been back a few times to connect, and still is great wee school. So super grateful for my time there. It was a school that had a lot of opportunities and options available, whether it be sport or academic stuff or cultural, and just sort of tried to get stuck into as much stuff as I can, and the opportunities around rugby and stuff were awesome. And we had couple of good coaches. Ruben Thorne was there when I was there, and Ross Kennedy and a couple others. So yeah, some great people to learn off, and yeah, just really enjoyed my time. It was still close with a lot of my mates from school, and look back with some great memories. And it's always nice to go back and connect with a couple of the lads. Obviously, a bit more than 5 years out of school now, so I sort of, you know what it's like once you do your time at school and you leave, you sort of connect in for a couple of years and see the names come through. But after that, it makes me feel a bit old. Sort of don't know too many people there, but always good to go back and catch up with some teachers and spend a bit of time there as well.
Your last year at Christ College, you had the honour of being named as head boy. Tell us about receiving the head boy badge, and what did that teach you about leadership, and what did that bring to your rugby game?
Yeah, had the privilege of being head boy in year 13, my final year, and really enjoyed it. Was super busy with rugby and some leadership stuff, and then obviously my studies as well. So taught me a lot of skills around time management and being organised. And but I like being busy, and I think I thrive when I am busy, and you know, got a lot of things on my plate. What did it teach me about leadership? Probably just around leading through actions, probably a big one for me. You know, sometimes it can be easy to say words, but actually delivering it and following through on actions a really powerful statement. And just how to be relatable and connect to all the boys. You know, you got quite a lot of different boys at school, different personalities, different interests, and not that you'll be liked by everyone, but you sort of hope that you'd be able to connect in some way and form a bit of a connection with them. And yeah, just sort of being a relatable guy that doesn't get too ahead of himself, and you know, can stay grounded and relatable, and just be a real, I guess, role model for the younger kids. Because I remember being sort of in the younger years of school and really looking up to, you know, your head prefects and stuff, but just your year 13s as well and the older boys. So yeah, sometimes you find yourself caught between, you know, trying to be in a leadership position and then that balance of mates, and you know, trying to find that balance. But yeah, as I say, I really enjoyed it, and taught me a lot of things that I still, you know, use today. And I think we're blessed in the Hurricanes at the moment with the leadership group that we've got. Dupes, Stuffs, Billy, Shieldsy. Bit of a different leadership style, having four sort of co-captains, but again, all different personalities, but the way that they lead is very unique to them, and they don't steer too far away from who they are as people. And yeah, some great leaders in that group.
Let's talk about rugby cross, particularly the first 15. How many years did you play for the first 15?
2 years. Yeah, I played one game in year 11, but yeah, 2 years in the first 15. And who I locked with Sam Derry in year 12. He was a year above me at school, so that was pretty cool. And Isaiah Punavai was there when I was there, and a couple other boys as well. So yeah, really enjoyed the first 15. So the competition and the rivalry you have at school, you sort of, I've said it quite a few times to different people, you know, but just the opportunity and how fun school footy is. I think it's not till you leave school and sort of really reflect back on how good, you know, you had it in terms of turning up. It was, you know, easy. You're at school already. You're playing with your mates. You're playing in front of your school. You're representing your school. And just the rivalries you had. For us, it was with Christchurch Boys High. They beat us many times. I think it was 16 in a row at one point. I didn't end up winning any of my years that I was there, and they had college had quite a good run after I left. But yeah, just enjoying school footy was great, and you know, into school changes, and just really enjoyed my time and playing rugby.
Oh, that's fantastic. Let's talk about that 2018 season for Cross.
Yeah,
that was quite a good year for the first 15.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a good year. We probably actually underperformed the team we had. We had quite a good school team that year. Just never quite managed to make it click. We drew 18 all, I think, in the final that year. But I think they scored more tries or scored first or some weird rule. There's one of those rules that came into it. And they ended up going through that top 4 comp. But yeah, really enjoyable. Great bunch of lads, great coaching, and yeah, good times.
In year 9, you saw the first 15 lose 80-0 to Christchurch Boys in that very famous traditional.
Yeah.
When you got on the first 15, what were the motivators when you as a young year 9 saw that result and you got on the first 15? What were the motivators when you were going to go play Christchurch Boys and you have that result in the back of the mind back when you were a young lad?
Yeah, I remember the boys' high college game being sort of built up to be a biggie. Went down the bus and we got pumped 80-0. Pretty humbling experience, but yeah, just sort of made a couple of change. Well, that school made a couple of changes around sort of, I guess, investing a bit more into the rugby program, and Stephen Dodds came in and a couple of coaching and sort of just the whole resource around training and well, school sports almost gone professional in a way. Like
it has, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's whether it be rowing or rugby or cricket or basketball, whatever it is, it's sort of the top schools. And now to be competitive, you really got to invest in school and your boys and whatever it is. So yeah, probably just some changes around that sort of gave us a bit of a uplift in our performances. And obviously once you start winning, it sort of attracts a bit more talent and you sort of build a bit of momentum. It's sort of pretty hard to do when you're 80-0, you know, against our biggest rivals. So yeah, probably a bit of a snowball effect around investing in our rugby and sort of attracting a bit of talent and builds a bit of belief. And yeah, schools are always so cyclical in their, you know, years and performances. Like you can have a good run for 5 years and then drop off for whatever reason. It's just sort of a bit of the sign of the times around who's there and, you know, who's not there. So yeah, as I said, we lost 16 in a row, managed to win one, I think it was in 2017. We lost one, drew one, and then college actually had a pretty good run after I left for a couple of years, and it's gotten a lot more even that first 15 level. Beads are competitive, St Andrews.
St Thomas's as well.
St Thomas's, they won 2 years ago or last year or so. Yeah, which is cool to see. You want an even competition. I think definitely back in the day, boys high were the team to beat with the likes of Will Jordan and all those sort of boys coming through the system at their time. So yeah, swings and roundabouts.
Let's talk about that traditional against boys high. It is one of the top first 15 traditionals in the country.
Yeah,
we have Wellington College and Silverstream here, which is huge. But let's talk about the day of boys high versus Christ College. What's it like, not only just as a player, but as a student?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool rivalry. It's, as you say, probably one of the biggest in the country. King's Grammar College, boys high. Every city has one. It's usually public versus private. built, not bought. But yeah, it's awesome. I think in terms of being at school and playing first 15, it's probably the epitome of schoolboy rugby. And results aside, in terms of like an atmosphere and an occasion, like it's pretty special. You get sometimes more supporters at that game than you do at an NPC or a Super Rugby game sometimes. So yeah, packed out ground, which is pretty cool. It's usually a midday kickoff, so playing in front of your mates in school, and always a bit of history on the line. And yeah, just a super epic day that you just get to go test yourselves against another team, and it's always marked on the calendar pretty early doors, and the boys get up for it. So the whole thing around, you know, schoolboy rugby, haka, playing in front of your school. And as I said before, it's not till probably you leave school that you realise how awesome those opportunities are. And for a lot of boys that don't kick on as well, where, you know, probably a select few that are lucky enough to kick on, that's probably the epitome of their rugby career in terms of, you know, playing in front of a crowd, in terms of the whole hype around it. And even for us that have kicked on, like you sort of look back and go, that was pretty special.
That's pretty awesome. You know, particularly in first 15 environment at boys' schools, it's massive.
Yeah, huge. Indeed. Yeah. No, you always look back and it's always talked about, or, you know, if you catch up with old mates, it's sort of always spoken about and give each other a bit of banter.
Besides boys high traditional, is there any other game that's a favourite of yours and why?
Schoolboy? Or...
Yeah, schoolboys, yeah.
To be honest, like, enjoyed all of them.
Yeah.
Like, pretty cliche answer, but sort of that whole, you know, like travelling, you know, you'd usually have one home and one away. So travelling as a team was always fun.
There's a bit of travelling sometimes too as well.
Yeah, there is like a good old in terms of connecting as a group, like travelling for us in Christchurch up to Nelson, 5 or 6 hours on the bus, leave on a Friday, so miss a day of school, Friday afternoon. Play against Nelson in Nelson, which was always hard or a tough place to play. Nelson rest and a couple one-eyed supporters, but where they used to irrigate their fields before we played.
Oh,
They had big boys. Anton Segner and a couple of those boys were there when I was playing. But just enjoying really the whole sort of approach to schoolboy. St Andrews was always another favourite.
Yeah.
They were sort of had a good couple of ding-dongs with them throughout school, and just enjoyed all of them really.
Of course, you're professional rugby recently. You've had a few injuries, but at school you had some other interesting injuries, you said.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of those.
Injuries. Pretty good at those these days. Ticking them off throughout the whole body. Compound. I did a forearm.
Oof.
If you can see that. But put both my forearm bones through my skin. Oh, that's probably not.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, but put both
right
my
for the skin, Joe.
Yeah,
Jeez.
just must have been under 6 things tournament. So what was that, year 11, I think, down in Southland of all places.
Yeah.
And just sort of was a bit, I was outside the ball carrier, but probably 2 outside the ball carrier. And last minute sort of went in to make a tackle and just sort of threw my arm and sort of hope for the best. And just got stuck between the tackler and the ball carrier. Felt it sort of go numb and thought, probably done a bit of a stinger or something, or it's just one of those ones that comes right in a couple of seconds. Didn't think too much of it. Ruck happened. Went to get up and I just felt my arm flop and I was like, that's not great. I looked down and I had, because it was a typical Southland day, about 3 degrees in horizontal rain, had one of those long sleeve sort of compression thermals on, and just looked down, and staring it back at me was both my forearm bones sort of through my black compression sleeve. So I thought, to be honest, I actually thought that's my arm. I'm going to lose my arm. My wrist was sort of back on my elbow, sort of from about there. It was actually a pretty bad injury. It was bad injury. And then, sort of obviously went numb as well because it had no blood supply because it literally had been folded in half. So it was quite funny. We had Dave Alvey, who's a good mate of ours. He was one of the dads on the sideline and ran on with not knowing what it was at the time, ran on with a bag of ice and a bit of a chili bin, thinking, oh yeah, he'll be right. And ran over and saw it and I was like, it's not going to cut the mustard. And I was lucky actually that one of the boys' dad, one of the boys in my team, his dad was an orthopedics, still is an orthopedic surgeon. Yeah. He does a lot of the knees actually for the boys at Super Rugby.
Oh, wow.
But just happened to be that he was on the sideline at the time. And so I was in good care with him and ran on, and a couple of the dads jumped on me and sort of pulled my arm back straight. So I think I was passed out at this point by shock and just the pain of it. But thankfully still got my arm and it's working pretty well. That's why I wear that arm guard on my...
Oh, is that why you wear the arm guard?
Arm guard on my forearm. Sort of, it's just still got the plates and screws in there at the moment, so it's still reasonably sensitive to a knock, and sort of I won't wear it sometimes and I think I'll keep wearing it. So that's why I wear my arm guard.
Oh, yeah. I always wondered why there was this big...
big Victor Metfield specialty. A couple of boys give me shit around, thinking I got metal
things in there.
And try and take the boys out, but actually it's stopped my arm from snapping again.
And how long did it take, for your snapped arm to come back?
Yeah, it took a while, to be fair.
Yeah. Not too many surgeries? Or?
Nah, just the one. I was lucky. Yeah. Actually, I think drove or flew a specialist from Dunedin to Invercargill to do the operation.
Yeah.
Because I was quite young at the time, so I was still growing and the growth plates and stuff like that. So I probably had a good year off sport, I'd say, between rugby, obviously, ruled me out for the rest of that rugby season. And then I was rowing at school as well, and just took a while to fully recover in the nerve damage and just actually regaining a bit of strength in my arm. And then once it was good to go, just actually building the left side of my body back up again, because I sort of hadn't used it in the best part of 6 to 9 months. So, and rehab's not like rehab in a professional environment where you're taking care of every day. But had a good year off sport, which probably allowed me to grow a little bit and put on a bit of size. But just grateful to have
Yeah.
wood, a functioning arm.
And still no issues today with the arm?
The longest thing to come back was my nerves and my, what do you call that, dexterity or whatever it's called. Just my nerves had been sort of cut through by my bone, so I didn't have any nerves to my thumb. So just actually getting my thumb going again was probably the slowest bit. But yeah, all in all, pretty good at the moment. So
yeah, extremely lucky.
Yeah, one of those freak ones. So
now you mentioned the word rowing before, the Māori Cup. Of course, you have been to the Māori Cup before with Christ. Rowing's very popular in Canterbury. You've attended a few Māori Cups. What events did you take part in, and what learnings did you take from rowing into your rugby?
Yeah, it's probably going back to your first question around like fitness and building an engine's probably where I got that sort of side from, because rowing's a pretty physically demanding sport, and we were training sort of, upwards of 13 times a week at school from, maybe not year 9, year 9 sort of through to year 13, you're sort of, it's pretty full on, and again, pretty much a professional environment around that rowing stuff. So, and they've just had the Māori Cup actually recently.
That's right, Westlake Boys won it first time, 40 years.
Yeah, Westlake Boys, good on them. It's cool to see. So, yeah, really enjoyed my time rowing. It was sort of, I only really rowed sort of one and a half years. Just with my arm, I sort of rowed my first year, loved it, really enjoyed it. Went to Māori as an under 15, which was down in Twizel, and sort of got my first taste of Māori Cup and what it takes to sort of really, I guess, train for something really hard and sort of, have a bit of success off the back of that, and sort of the enjoyment you can get from working hard as a group of lads. And we'd spend so much time training together down in Twizel, and just a really enjoyable time. And had my arm injury playing rugby, so I was sort of off sport for a while, and I tried coming back a couple of times, but every time I tried coming back, I was sort of just so deconditioned. And rowing such a high level of fitness and stuff that I just sort of, my body just wasn't liking it in terms of getting sick and run down and a couple of other things. So yeah, a couple of years rowing and really enjoyed it. And yeah, in terms of commitment, work ethic, enjoyment, pretty unparalleled.
Yeah. Now, Representative Footy came calling your way, 2022. You got a phone call for a certain team. Tell us about that.
For the
All Black 15?
All Black 15, yeah. As I said, around sort of having a pretty crazy year from 21 to 22, sort of never really expected it. It was the first year of having an All Blacks 15 team. And I was only 21, 22 at the time, so still young as, and I felt like, was still fresh to NPC, let alone Super Rugby. And but yeah, pretty fortunate to make that team. I think looking back on it now as a young 21, 22-year-old to make that team. But yeah, loved it. Exposed to some pretty awesome players that a lot of them have kicked on to the All Blacks now, or become consistent selected, in the All Blacks 15 team, or knocking on the All Blacks door anyway. So yeah, loved my time in that team. We went to London and Dublin. It was pretty cool. Played against Island A at RDS Arena, which was pretty epic. They love their rugby over there. And
do they what? Yeah.
at Guinness. And then played against the Barbarians in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is actually not too long finish, I think, when we played in there. So it was, I think that day was 65,000 people. Joe Marler was in the team, Zach Mercer, a couple other big names. So in terms of being the pinnacle, that's probably the pinnacle of my rugby career. And looking back on it now, it's like, it's pretty crazy it happened.
What's been the best advice you've been given in your development as a lock?
Yeah, super grateful to work with some amazing locks. Crusade have had, probably some of the world's best locks over the time. Whitelock, Barrett, Romano. That's just to name a few. As a lock, probably same with any position, just like trying to get better at nailing your skill set in your position. And I think if a lock can, run a line out effectively, it's probably the core role. Catch a ball overhead, so a good sort of skill set. That's sort of the foundational, scrum well, those sort of things. And then I guess where the game going now is you've sort of got to have a bit of X factor, whether it's work ethic or ball carry or physicality or something like that. You've got to have a bit of go about you. So probably just nailing the basics around your role and being really, really consistent in that area. I think of someone like a Scott Barrett or a Sam Whitelock, they're probably, you knew what you were going to get from Sam Whitelock. You're going to get consistent performances in high pressure moments. He was always that guy you could sort of turn to in a team when the team's under the pump or whatever it is, and you knew he was going to perform or execute or whatever it is. And in the big moments, he really, came through. Probably to that 2022 Blues final, he's probably the player of the game. That game, just around lineouts and just nailing basics. So probably just that thing around nail your skill set. And then Luke Romano was really big on make your strength your strength. I think sometimes you get a little bit carried away. Obviously, you got to work on your weaknesses, otherwise, and you got to be not have a big enough ego to not think you have weaknesses, because we all do. But just around making your strength and believing in it, and that's probably the reason why you're in a team.
Yeah.
So just double down on that and go super hard in that area and try and make as much of that as possible.
The toughest opponent you've played against and why?
Toughest opponent, I'd say the 2022 semi-final was a game that was probably the most physical I've played in. I think being a bit lighter and a bit younger as well. And then we were up against the Chiefs, so Brodie Retallick was my opposite, and Tupou Vai at the time. So I started in that game as well because we were under a bit of an injury crisis. So just playing against them was pretty daunting. I'd see them on the TV for the All Blacks for the best part of 6 to 8 years before that. Yeah. And then sort of, you look across in the line and how Brodie Retallick's going up against you. You think this is pretty unreal, and you think he's going to steal everything. So, probably something like that. And then you always get, the your Ardie Saviers or your pretty dominant ball carriers, Jim Tabatamanawa with the Landers this year. Those sort of guys around there, but an X factor in terms of trying to tackle them are pretty hard. But probably Brodie Retallick, physicality and
If a young rugby player's dream is to pull on the All Black jersey, what are the motivators or work-ons that you need to do to ensure you can one day be an All Black, which one day you probably will be?
We'll see. It's probably every young boy's dream, really, but just probably what I said before around just like nailing your skill set, being really good at the basics, and then that little bit of X factor around what's your point of difference and getting really good at that. And for me, that's probably my work ethic, and maybe a bit of that physicality around the field is probably what I try and pride myself on. I'm never going to be a super skillful, or probably an area of work on for me, but super skillful or a really good ball carrier like some of these other locks. I'm probably not like an out-and-out lock, I think, in terms of that 2 metre plus. Like, I'm not that sort of player, and not like a Josh Lord or a Fabian who are just monsters of humans. Genetically blessed and work hard as well, but just freaks of nature when it comes to size. Like, sort of sit between probably a number 6 and a lock in that sort of hybrid space. So for me, I've got to find a different way around, what's in the game for me. So, just nailing down on what I really enjoy and what I think is probably my strength.
You were injured this weekend. The Hurricanes play the Blues at Eden Park. And for both teams, really, it's a season-defining game. What has the team learnt from the last time they played the Blues when they probably should have put them away in the second half at Sky Stadium?
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting game, that last one for us. We sort of felt like we probably had a little bit of the upper edge, and Blues came back strong, as you say, in that second half and ran away with the game. So they're a hurting team at the moment, and to an extent so I know we've had some good results in the last 2 weeks, but for us, just going out there and getting dominance is still what we're after. So yeah, we know what's coming in terms of the Blues bouncing off a bye week after what they probably consider a pretty tough and slow start to Super Rugby, and they'll be pretty keen to right some wrongs from the past few weeks. Blues team's always going to be physical. They've always got good, big, strong ball carriers. Garden of Eden's always a pretty tough place to play when the Blues get a steam up. So for us, it's just, we've spoken this week around just it's us versus us. Cliche as it sounds, it's, I think what worked for us last week around that Waratahs game is it was just driving our own standards and what do we want to get out of the game. So it changes for us this week against the Blues in terms of a technical side, but in terms of what we want to get out of it, it probably comes back to that. And just, being physical is probably a big thing, and just bringing energy and getting stuck in and getting after it. So the games you really miss playing is the big one. So, boys have had a pretty good training week so far and stuck into training again tomorrow.
Now, we'll finish up tonight. It's round 1 of club rugby here in Wellington. And you may know some about some of the clubs, and of course some of the Hurricanes players have some of their clubs, so you've probably got to be careful which team you're going to pick. We always on Huddy Sports here, and Huddy Hui always like to go through the round and see who's playing. And we've got Johnsonville versus Parramatta Flemington. And that could be an interesting game. They've been pretty close the last few years. Who do you think's going to win there?
You'll know more about some of these teams than I will. It'll be good for me this year, just to get try to get down to Petone and get around a couple of the club teams this year and see what it's all about. And I've heard it's quite different to club rugby down south.
Yeah,
so
it is. Yeah.
Keen to sort of get stuck into it and see what the clubs are about and learn some more about the clubs. So I'll probably, if I just flip a coin, you'll know more than me. Maybe Jayville. I don't know.
Jayville,
Yeah.
Maris Pornicky. It's always a battle of Kilburnie Park, Evans Bay, right next to each other.
Pornicky, Why not?
North's Avalon.
Probably North.
Pretty
North.
powerhouse club.
Oops,
Last year's champions, Old Boys University, Callum Harkin and Cole Preston's team against Tawa. They were the finalists last year in the Jubilee Cup.
We'll go OBU, Yeah, maybe them again.
Oris and Upper Hutt. Oris, of course, is the club of Xavier Numia.
Yeah, we'll go Oris.
Yep.
Yeah,
cool. And
Wainuiomata
versus Huddle Boys Maris. It's always a good battle, and particularly Peter Umaga Jensen's club, Wainuiomata, at home. I always like to cause an upset early.
Yeah. We'll go Wainuiomata,
Yeah, we'll go
Played their pre-season.
That's right. Yeah, big crowd there too as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was actually, field was unreal there pre-season.
Yeah.
Ground staff did an epic job, and always good to take a Super Rugby game pre-season to a sort of, local community, and they were awesome. We actually got over there for a bit of pre-season connection stuff around the marae and a bit of work over there, so we'll back them,
There was an interesting story about Wana Kumar, who's the club captain over there. She, Hurricanes people said, do you have any ice baths? And she said, it's the creek across the road.
It'll do. It's what's all about,
Yes.
Keep it humble.
And of course, you've got no choice in this one. Zach Petone Wellington, which is our feature game on Huddy Sports this Saturday.
Yeah, back to Petone. We'll back Petone.
I think you'd be in trouble from a few people if you went the other way.
Exactly. So it'd be good to get stuck into a bit of club stuff this year, and maybe by the end of the year I'll be able to give you a better idea of who's going to win and who's looking like the favourites. But it's good to see club rugby back in action. I think club rugby back down south as well this week. So
and of course, good. Was it a 1 year with the Hurricanes this year, or was it planned more?
Yeah, 1 year. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and back with Canterbury again this season.
Yeah, back down Canterbury.
Yeah.
As we were saying before, year's gone so fast. Midway through Super Rugby, just about, and and then finish off Hurricanes and get down to back to Canterbury.
Yeah, back to Canterbury.
Hopefully
it's the only time that jersey's got to be out there that day.
Make the one feature. Back down there for NBC, which I'm looking forward to. It's nice to have a change up here and freshen up, and see what happens.
Well, it's been great having you on the Hui,
Zach. Mate. Much appreciated.
Awesome. And that has been the Huddy Hui for tonight. Club Rugby underway this Saturday. We'll be back next Wednesday for another episode of the Huddy Hui. Ciao for now.
It's the Huddy Hui. You can find Huddy Sports on Instagram and Facebook. And check out huddysports.co.nz.
Here on Huddy Sports, we like to thank our sponsors that have always been grateful to our causes here on Huddy Sports. Our first sponsor, Mike Pinfold Plumbing and Drain Laying Limited. If you need any drain laying or plumbing assistance, give Mike Pinfold a call on 027 430 4351 or Pinfold Plumbing at extra.co.nz. Louise Reddy of New Zealand Travel Brokers. If you need any travel advice, she's local here in the Hutt Valley in Petone. Call 021 135 3076. Louise Reddy, Louise.Reddy at nztravelbrokers.co.nz. And also to Gavin Murphy and the team at Jen Hickton Funeral Directors. They've been serving Wellington families of their funeral directoring services since 1946. So go to jenhickton.co.nz. They're all local people here in the Hutt Valley and Wellington that service our greater community. We also like to thank Ben Belusnik Visual Designs that helps with the graphics here on Huddy Sports. As here on Huddy Sports, we're always wanting to keep our content free on YouTube. So the idea of sponsors, we can promote you on live stream, our social media pages and our website. It's good to support the local community and helps keep Huddy Sport free for all to watch. So if you're interested to helping Huddy Sports, go to huddysports.co.nz or to our email address, huddysportsnz@gmail.com.